In the whiskey world, does older always mean better? All this and more. Stay tuned. What is up, my friends? It is your host, Nick Anderson, also known as Amongst the Whiskey. And today, we are going to talk all things Jack Daniels. I got my grubby paws on all three of the new releases. The 10-year Batch 4, the 12-year Batch 3, and the brand new 14-year Batch number 1 at barrel proof. That's what I'm talking about. What's really interesting about the Jack Daniel's series as these age statements continue to creep up is that the trend in proof is also going up. The 10-year release is bottled at 97 proof. The 12-year release is bottled at 107. And like I mentioned, the 14-year is bottled at barrel proof. This one is 126.3 on batch 1. What this means for long-term whiskey enthusiasts is that this is becoming a flight. It's almost designed to be drank in order of year. Typically when you're procuring a tasting flight, you typically will drink low proof to high proof so that you don't blow out your palate and you're able to taste the nuance of some of those lower proof whiskeys. So today I'm going to do just that. I'm going to start off with the 10-year, the lowest proof, give you my thoughts, maybe some tasting notes. From there, jump into the 12-year, rise in proof, 107. If that extra proof, extra age is an improvement, or perhaps I might like the 10-year better. In previous batches, that has been the case. I've flip-flopped on year to year, batch to batch. These all have a little bit of variation, so this is specifically going to be for the latest releases from 2025. So let's get a Glencairn and get to work. All right, I've got a Glencairn for each of these. I'm going to leave them over to the side. So while I crack these open, why don't I read a little bit of the press release details? This first release in like February of 2025. For whatever reason, the Massachusetts market just took forever to receive this round of Jack Daniel's products. So Jack, if you could like prioritize the Massachusetts market for future releases, that would be great. Because this released in February, and I didn't get it until the end of May. Even better, if you could just like send me this release every year, that'd be even better. So from the February 2025 press release, the Jack Daniel Distillery today announced the release of its Jack Daniel's 14-year Tennessee whiskey, marking the first time since the early mid to 1900s that Jack Daniel's has offered an expression at this age. This year's age series also includes Jack Daniel's 12-year-old batch 3, 10-year-old batch 4, and it is the latest in the annual release that nods towards the history of the Jack Daniel Distillery. There's a nice quote in the press release. When we released our first Jack Daniel's 10-year-old Tennessee whiskey a few years ago, we set out to honor the legacy of Jack Daniel himself and replicate the lineup of age-stated whiskeys available during his time, said Chris Fletcher, master distiller at the Jack Daniel Distillery. This year's releases build upon that as we reintroduce our new 14-year-old Tennessee whiskey, the oldest age statement for Jack Daniel's in the last 100 years or more. These whiskeys really showcase how a little extra time in our barrels is capable of producing something so special. We're going to open them up and find out if that's true, Chris Fletcher. Is there any better sound than the glugging of whiskey out of a freshly cracked bottle, you know, and just that first little headspace starts to dissipate? That first glug is just so good. And as you may be able to tell from my fill level on the 14, I did get this bottle first over the other ones, so I will have a review, a written review on amongstthewhiskey.com for you, and that link will be down in the description. All right, so up first is going to be the Jack Daniel's 10-year. I'm really excited to get into this year's batch. The 10-year for me actually was one of my favored for, I think when batch 1 first came out, the 10-year was just spectacular. I'll link all of my age-stated Jack reviews down in the description as well. All right, let's get down to business to defeat the Glen. Okay, on the nose, it is very light. Nothing really jumping out at me saying, hey, I'm this kind of a whiskey, I have this kind of flavor profile. Just generally very cool, unassuming in the glass so far. A little bit of caramel, a little bit of like a linen or a newspaper kind of aroma. So just kind of a dry oakiness. Yeah. 10 years not doing much for me here. On the nose. I haven't tasted it yet. Hold your horses. Alright, what the heck. This is just a fresh crack, not my full review process. I'll speed it up a little bit for you. On to the taste. Okay, nice little bit of butteriness here. Caramel leads. It's definitely bready. I think I very typically will call Jack Daniel's bready. There's just not quite a yeasty characteristic. It's like a baked bread. It's fully formed. I'm not trying to call this thing young by any means. 10 years old is definitely plenty of aging time in a barrel. But there's just something about Jack Daniel's distillate that comes across bready. Sometimes that's banana bread. If anybody knows the kind of the classic Jack Daniel's profile, banana is very typically tossed around in circles of Jack Daniel's enthusiasts talking about recurring tasting notes. There's maybe a hint of that banana. This is very lightly bananaed banana bread. There's just a little bit of banana in the bread. Another sip. The first sip was a completely fresh palate, just for the record. So second sip, a little more acclimated to even just 97 proof here. It's good. It's fine. There's nothing wow-worthy about this glass. I feel a little duped, having paid whatever I paid, $110, if that's what MSRP is. Yeah, I feel a little duped at 110, I'll be honest. And I don't normally rate things on price, but in certain scenarios, you have kind of glaring inconsistencies in that regard, and this is kind of one of them. Okay, finger, wow, okay. Linger and or finish, whatever you want to call it. Apparently my brain wanted to call it finger. The finger is a little boozy, a little imbalanced. Yeah, can't say I'm crazy for this year's 2025 release of the Jack Daniel's 10 year. I'm going to leave it in the glass for a little longer, see if it develops a little bit, but for me, I'm going to give that one a meh. Sorry, JD10. All right, on to JD12. Make sure that's nice and centered for you. I forgot my water. I'll be right back. Righto, palate reset. Let's get on with the show. Up front, suffering a little bit from the same lightness that the 10-year glass kind of had. There's nothing really dominant jumping out of the glass at me. When I first put it to my nose, I kind of got this green feel to it, like a fresh earth and verdant forest. You know what it kind of smelled like? It smelled like a briar patch. When you're walking through the woods, you find a real thick briar patch. It's kind of maybe a wetland area. The ground's very wet. It's kind of got that green, verdant, wet forest smell to it. And if chomping on some briars doesn't sound appetizing, I don't know what is. All right, a little swirl of glass. I'm getting a touch of black pepper, not super sharp and not super bright, not bitey. For the higher proof, it's not really coming across with a lot more oomph, a lot more gusto. It's still very balanced in the glass. A very similar bready characteristic as the 10-year glass had. Let's have a taste. Cheers to you. Okay. Boom. Way bigger. The proof is very evident. The stark jump, even though it's only 10-point proof jump, very apparent to the tongue. It lands like a cacophony of flavors. I get a little bit of flan, a little bit of graham cracker. The extra age here is very apparent and has clearly improved the profile, the tasting profile of the 12-year over the 10-year. Night and day difference. I like the 12-year a lot better than the 10-year this year. Another taste. Oh yeah, keep this super simple. Nice little bit of fruitiness on the mid palate. I get a little bit of cherry dancing across my tongue. Good creaminess, good heft. This is definitely going to appeal to your barrel proof fans. It's close enough at 107. It almost feels barrel proof to me. I think people that like Elijah Craig barrel proof are going to love the Jack Daniel's 12-year batch 3. Yeah, the linger has a little bit of this butterscotchy, old school whiskey vibe. I like that a lot. Am I mad about buying the Jack Daniel's 12-year? No. I like this. I can see myself sipping this again on several other occasions, depending on what mood has struck me. And right now, I'm all about Jack Daniel's. And really, this Jack Daniel's is a pretty exceptional product. Yeah, don't at all feel duped by that. Lovely, lovely whiskey. Nice job, Jack Daniel's. And now, of course, we gotta get into the Jack Daniel's 14-year. This is probably the one that you're most excited about. Probably the whiskey that you really want to hear if it's going to be worth tracking down. I have been seeing that this is going for crazy prices on secondary. The distribution on this is really limited. I was asking around my Massachusetts stores for the last 2 months, every time I was in, and they said, nope, it's not in. Nope, it's not in. The distributor hasn't told us about it. And then it started to turn into, when we do get it, we might only get 1 bottle. We might only get 2 bottles. You gotta be here on the day that it arrives, pretty much. And when you ask every day, you're there on the day it arrives. So, let's get into Jack Daniel's 14 year. Right off the bat, that has some crazy color to it. And again, this is the oldest and the highest proof. It hasn't been watered down to a lower proof. This is barrel proof Jack Daniel's 14 year. Onto the nose. Ooh, definitely the most old school vintage candy. I'm getting like the wrapper of a saltwater taffy. Just like Maine coastal candy shop vibes in this glass. That's super cool. It's almost like a candied pepper. Like there's a little bit of black pepper and allspice, but it's got this like candy characteristic. Almost like it's doused in vanilla syrup or confectioner's sugar or something similar. This nose is spectacular. My. Right off the bat, that is a lovely, lovely nose. The aroma on this glass is just spectacular. Night and day. The trend line here for quality is up and to the right, and JD14 is on the top end of that right-hand scale. Oh yeah, that vanilla bean is really coming on strong now. Really, really nice nose. I think I'm gonna like the sip, but let's find out for sure. Hey. Cheers, JD. My man. Guys, that is the best Jack Daniel's whiskey I've tasted since the 2020 limited edition rye came out. That is spectacular. Wow. The way it just coats the tongue, super flavorful, super creamy. That dog will hunt. I realize I haven't described it at all other than the fact that I love it. Perhaps the best way to describe it, it's like buttercream frosting up front, and then it swings in with this zap of sweet and spice at the same time in perfect balance. It's like maraschino cherry juice mixed with a dash of nutmeg, maybe a little bit of cinnamon. There's definitely some ultra-aged characteristics here. There's a little bit of like a coconut characteristic that usually happens as you get to very high age statement whiskeys. 14, 15, 16 years in oak. You start to get some of those coconut, those tropical tones. It's kind of got a vintage, dusty whiskey feel to it, which, if you know the crazy dusties that I've tasted through fantastic friends and dear companions in the whiskey industry, that is a very high compliment to this whiskey. Yeah. Another sip is just so coating. It hits every part of the mouth. Molasses, caramel, good little tingle that's not quite boozy. For me, it kind of feels like a really fun cocktail ingredient, maybe like a allspice dram. And the finish just goes on and on and on forever. Caramel, drizzle of molasses. It's super creamy. Almost get like a pancake without a ton of maple syrup, but like a pancake, freshly made pancake. Maybe drizzled with a pat of butter. Not quite maple syruped yet, though. Yeah, that's a verb. This is clearly a standout in this year's lineup. I think the 14 year is hands down the best whiskey of the 3. There's no question about that in my mind. But if you want to know all there is to know about the Jack Daniel's 14 year, you're going to have to hit the link in the description below to read my full review on amongstthewhiskey.com. While you're there, drop a comment on this video before you leave, and you might get a taste of Jack Daniel's 14 year. But that is going to do it for today, folks. Now you know JD14 is the real deal. Let me know if you're going to be hunting this one. And if you find one, tell me about it. But until next time, my friends, keep it amongst the whiskey.